I started trying to think about food. Red meat, raw steaks. And then I found I was thinking about spare ribs. And then those little Yorkshire puddings. Oh my God, what does this mean?
Welcome to episode 20 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where I think we're more spare rib than little Yorkshire puddings.
I thought she was going to go a different way with that. You know, the spare rib, the Bible story about women being made out of men's ribs so that they should have an extra one.
Reading too much into it.
I think it was too deep.
Yeah.
She immediately corrected me with her little Yorkshire puddings.
How are you?
I'm increasingly concerned about my sore wrist, but other than that, I'm fine.
Okay. I won't ask how you got that.
Tragic accident. Mm-hmm. How are you today, Gerry?
Iffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not feeling too hot. There's been a bug going around. I don't fancy catching it.
Yeah, the H1N3.
Yep, I've heard that Andrex shares are skyrocketing.
Skyrocketing.
Yeah, so I think what we should do is rocket through this episode, this second part.
20-minute show, yeah.
That might be pushing it.
See how we're going.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Yes, let's do it.
Do you have a summary?
Very quick one with loads of spoilers.
Crack on.
In the second part of Satan's Chimney, Alan Kalnick shows up dead, providing a second mystery for Jonathan and Carla to sink their teeth into. With a range of possible but not perfect suspects, and the increasing likelihood that Alan himself was responsible for Vivian's death, can the killer be caught and justice be done? And are those two the same?
Good question. Where did we finish last time?
I think we saw Alan driving off.
Well, we certainly saw Alan leave by car.
Yeah.
And Jonathan saw Alan leave by car. And we meet Jonathan the next morning in the courtyard.
Yes, he's pacing around looking for something, it seems.
Carla, she's watching on and works out that Jonathan is trying to establish where the top of the chimney should be, but isn't.
Yes, and she's exactly right. That's precisely what he's done. He's measured out the steps and directions that they travelled when they went down to the dungeon, and now he knows exactly where the chimney should appear.
And because of this, he thinks something clever has happened.
Yeah.
But he is more puzzled by where Kalnick was and what he was doing between disappearing from the chimney and then leaving the castle at 3:35 in the morning.
Yeah, he notes that the drawbridge was down, but he's not even sure that the mechanism for that works properly.
So they both ponder his message on the phone and wonder why he wasn't more explicit. It was quite cryptic.
Yeah, he left a very brief message, or he spoke to Jonathan very briefly and didn't go into it or explain or confide in them, and I think they both found that unusual.
Yeah. I think he spoke at Jonathan more than with him.
Yeah, that was certainly the case.
In the dining room, the gang have all gathered, and Bronson is clearly worse for wear. If you can remember last time, he was having a bit of fun with the alcohol.
Yeah, he certainly isn't up for his breakfast anyway. He tosses it aside and starts looking through his medication for something soluble.
Yeah, before deciding to go back to bed. Jodie is unsympathetic, but as she is about to have a go at him, she is bitten by something and straddles Jonathan to ask for his help.
It's still a little bit contrived, wasn't it?
Very much so. She then mysteriously claims that there are strange things about her. She stares at Ray before inviting Jonathan upstairs to show him something.
Something non-specific.
And that's where we head, her bedroom. What does she do up there?
She produces a laptop, Viv's laptop.
Yep, which has Vivian's diary contained within.
Password protected.
It's very 18 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, the file's there, and in the file there's another subdirectory that says password, which contains a text file with a clue to the password.
What's the clue?
66YEAR, or 66 year.
Yeah. This is obviously a hint rather than the actual password.
Yeah. I think they try it to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the most secure setup, I don't think.
No. Carla has a few attempts herself, but gets rather uncomfortable when Jodie reaches around her to help her.
Yeah, it's kind of like she's flirting with her at this stage. She's very tactile, and Jonathan's suggestion of a walk goes down very well with Carla.
It does. Now, we didn't mention last episode, there was a scene where we discussed Carla explaining to Jonathan that Jodie wasn't quite as innocent as she makes out, and there was an incident with some of the electricians on a set and some bubble gum.
Okay.
And I think at this point, when she reaches round, she's chewing gum, and that's, it's a nod back to that.
Okay.
So yeah, anyway, she jumps at the suggestion of a walk with Jonathan. So we're outside at a riverbank.
Yeah, Carla is furious that Jodie felt entitled to grope her, and it's a the way that this scene's written, it's a very early 2000s approach to the situation, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be written this way now.
It's not handled
delicately.
No, that's right. Jonathan is more circumspect, which doesn't go down too well with Carla.
Yeah, he thinks that Jodie's maybe trying to define her own sexuality, which I think is meant to be a progressive view, but not being confident or still experimenting with sexuality is not an excuse to grope somebody or harass them.
No. Carla being upset makes a number of claims about what Jonathan likes.
Yeah, she's suddenly, a switch has gone off in her brain. It's a strange moment.
Mm-hmm.
The note that I took is that she's looking for a reason to flip her anger onto Jonathan, because she's angry about what's happened and she's got no reason to be angry with Jonathan, but if she can manipulate the situation slightly, maybe she can justify just yelling at him a wee bit.
Yeah. She then has an idea that Jodie wanted the password, as she had tried it on with Vivian and wanted to find out what Vivian's thoughts were on the situation.
Yeah, Jonathan is of the view that somebody, they're not sure who, is playing a dangerous game, and it's probably better that he and Carla watch their backs for the time being until they know who they can trust.
Indeed. And at this, she realises that Jonathan has worked out the password.
Well, he tells her to keep it to herself without actually sharing it with her. It's kind of a Maddie-esque moment where he's assuming that, or not assuming, he's either assuming she's got it, or more likely he is sort of bragging about the fact that he's got it and not anybody else, but doing it in a way that seems humble.
Sure, but unlike with Maddie, I think he only has to offer a few hints and Carla is able to work it out.
Yeah, it's when you know the answer, it's not that difficult.
What is the answer?
So 66 was Roman numerals, VI, and then year in French is AN, so Vivian. Terrible password.
But just then, she has other things to worry about, as whilst she's walking in a stream with her shoes off, now it looked absolutely freezing.
Yeah, it reminded me, you won't get the reference, but there's a bit in Lord of the Rings when they're crossing a marsh and there's dead people under the water and they come up. It's a bit like that.
Yeah, well, describe what happens.
Well, she's walking across this stream and steps on what could have been a stepping stone, but is in fact the face of Alan Kalnick.
Yes. His dead head.
His dead head.
We're back at the castle a little time later. There's cops all over the place, and we hear Carla respond in disbelief to Herman saying that perhaps Kalnick had fallen.
Yeah, there's some suggestion of that. Herman, I think, is trying to come across as sympathetic, certainly to Carla, who was close to Alan, but she's not interested in that theory, I don't think.
No. Up in one of the bedrooms, maybe Carla's.
I had no idea. I just got room because I don't know if it's Jonathan's or Carla's.
She is pacing and trying to develop a hypothesis, but Jonathan is more interested in the manuscript from the night before. That was the one that Kalnick... No, yes.
Yeah, Herm got Kalnick to read it out. Jonathan thinks there's something off about it.
However, he can't work it out at the moment and wants to look into the diary.
Yep, he needs Carla to do something for him.
What?
To distract Jodie. This is a very inappropriate thing to ask for.
It is. Although in saying that, it wouldn't be that inappropriate if Jodie was simply someone who was interested in Carla and was acting appropriately.
Yeah, but given Carla's reaction that Jonathan witnessed, and she was so uncomfortable with it, it seems unreasonable to ask her.
Sure, but I think you could argue, well, that's Carla being unreasonable. In saying that, Jodie is inappropriate and unreasonable herself.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, Jonathan essentially pushes her out the door to go and flirt with Jodie.
Yeah, she has to be a decoy. So as an overly nervous Carla flirts with a very touchy Jodie outside in the gardens, Jonathan accesses the diary and after a while appears to have found something that he then saves to a floppy disk.
I loved the old computer noises. It reminded me a lot of being at school with like the chugging of the disk drive and the bleeping and blooping of the old Windows software.
Yeah.
We get a reference back to the start of the episode, or start of the first part of last week's one, when the anklet that we saw Carla buying in the jeweller's comes up. Jodie's very fond of it. She likes it.
She is, and Carla did actually have to take things further than she might have wished. But her claims of requiring therapy on her return seem a little extreme, don't you think?
Yeah, I think yes. I don't know if she's maybe hamming it up for Jonathan to say, look what I've done for you,
Yeah.
rather than actually thinking she needs therapy.
Yeah, perhaps she's being overly dramatic to elicit some sympathy.
Yeah, or, yeah, rub it into him that, I've done this for you, you owe me one.
Yeah. In Jonathan's room, she talks about the spare ribs and Yorkshire puddings that we heard at the top of the show, but it's cut short by Jonathan now claiming to know why Vivian was killed.
Yes, he's gone through the diary and identified the fact that this murder is probably revenge for an abortion that she had.
Yeah. Again, they didn't treat this hugely sensitively, I don't think.
No, it was... For a start, it was treated as if that's a perfectly reasonable excuse to kill somebody, which it's not. Yeah, and it's kind of brushed over a little bit as well, I felt.
Carla doesn't think that Vivian was capable of such a thing, but Jonathan disagrees and says that she was a very capable woman who organised her life around her career.
Yeah, but that is a very simplified way of looking at this. There's a million and one reasons she could have had an abortion.
Yes.
We find out why later on.
We do. Yes, but in Jonathan's mind, he has assumed that this termination was discovered by Kalnick, and he, being a religious extremist now, swore that justice would prevail.
Of course, that leaves the problem of him being nowhere near the scene when she was killed.
Indeed. And Carla makes this point. She reminds him that Kalnick was at the theatre all day. But Jonathan can answer that one.
As he'd always planned to be, despite what you told me. To give himself an impregnable alibi. And yet he knew, somehow, exactly what was going to happen. Remember when you came in with that message?
Alan. It's Vivian.
Anyone else would have taken that to mean it was Vivian on the phone, but what did he say?
God's name. What's happened to her?
Alan Kalnick. I may have to lie down.
Still can't get my head around those gaps, though. Why would you leave a load of blank spaces like that between entries?
We can't just sit on this. We have to tell the police.
Talking of which...
The big blank spaces, one of the first things I would do these days would be to drag my mouse over it.
It would be obvious, especially in a word processor document, the size and shape, the fact that you could even select parts of it. It would be obvious that the text is just there. It just needs to be changed into a different readable colour.
Down in the dining room, the ridiculous and pompous Inspector Bulstrode tries to go all Poirot by summing up what has happened with an additional theory of his own.
Yeah, the man has learned about the abortion and uses the principle of an eye for an eye. And then, with his considerable magic skills, he commits the murder in a way that will never be known.
Mm-hmm.
And either his conscience tells, or he knows he's done for. Could any jail have held him? He comments. He killed himself. Jonathan's not buying this theory.
No, and he asks how Kalnick managed to kill her from the theatre and then escape from the dungeon.
I actually quite enjoyed the policeman's response to that when he said, no doubt that will be the subject of lively debate in your industry for years to come. Because it certainly would be if that's how the case was ended.
Yeah.
There'd be conspiracy theorists all over it.
And he also claims that Kalnick, alas, has taken these secrets to the grave. It's just so lazy. It's like, well, we don't know, but, that's not for us. Yes, it is for you to work out.
I mean, yeah, it's not unlike some of these police documentaries that you watch in America where they decide on a narrative and then they just fit the facts to the narrative that they've come up with.
Only in America, you say?
Not only in America, but the documentaries there.
Sure.
After he leaves, or as he leaves, Carla apologises to Jodie for not trusting her, but she's unhappy and leaves as well.
Within this medieval building, we've got a modern editing suite.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it is, but I've noted elsewhere in the castle. Jonathan kind of wanders into it while Herm is watching shots of Vivian.
He's like a James Bond villain, and that's, I think, perhaps a nod to one of his previous roles that we mentioned.
Okay. Herm explains the editing process and how the illusion that he creates on film is not that different to what Jonathan and Adam create on stage.
Very true. He says sorry to Jonathan as he knows that he and Kalnick had plans together.
How did he know that?
Maybe Kalnick mentioned it.
Maybe.
And things get a little sinister as Jonathan claims that Herman is not sorry enough to mourn his death. He doesn't disagree at this point.
Yeah, so Jonathan knows that Herman was friends with Vivian and that Alan and Vivian had a fallout, or he's assumed that Alan and Vivian had a fallout, so maybe along those lines.
Herman turns and plays the actual death scene.
Yes, that's creepy.
Very creepy. And pauses on Vivian pointing in terror. And at this, Jonathan appears to have a eureka moment. But I'm not sure. I think right from the very beginning, he knew that it was a reflection. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure why he didn't ask, who was standing behind him at that point.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
I mean, there were a few people. I'm not sure if you could
There's a crowd
identify-
came in the door together, didn't they?
Yeah. So how would they know exactly who she meant?
Yeah. Well, I was going to make that point later on when they actually show the reflection, but
Okay.
the
Well,
angles are all wrong.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, but I suppose once he's worked out the sort of motive,
Yeah.
he's able to identify the.
Yeah.
In Carla's bedroom, we are.
Yes. She is in her bag and she comes across the letter that she stole from Bronson.
Yes, the warning that Bronson had in his trailer.
Death awaits you at Doomdorf Castle.
Now she's only reading this now.
Yeah, that's a bit careless.
It's stupid. As soon as you steal that, the first thing you do is look at it.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Why else would you steal it? Anyway, she's off to speak to him about it. She chaps his door with no reply.
Yeah, I think this is quite a nice bit of misdirection. You assume that Bronson is going to be a victim.
Yes, absolutely. So when she doesn't get the response, she shuggles the door and she goes to look in the keyhole and he answers the door, tells her to go away.
Yes. Outside, as Carla and Jonathan get in a taxi to leave, she tells him that Bronson was scared out of his wits at something. But of what and who?
Yeah, and she surmises that there's so much they don't know, it's a good reason to leave.
And as they drive over the drawbridge, Jonathan has another moment of a revelation and says that Kalnick must have had a mic on him when he left, and he asks for the taxi to be stopped.
Yes, Jonathan examines the parchment at this stage a bit closer and picks out some of the phrases.
He does. The words spoken by Kalnick when he made the call on the phone to him the other night.
Yeah, he concludes at this point that Alan has been recorded whilst he was reading that out, and that's then been reconfigured in the way that Herman showed him not that long ago, editing magic to create the call.
Indeed. He also remembers Kalnick's car was a left-hand drive, but when he saw him leaving in the morning, he was in fact in the passenger seat.
So there must have been somebody else in the car.
This, to Jonathan, means that Kalnick never left the dungeon alive.
It's a bit of a leap.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose he didn't make the call, so you've never got any evidence that he was alive.
Somebody set
and somebody
it up.
was driving him.
Yeah, and somebody set it up.
Yeah.
Went to the trouble of getting this message to him, so
He probably didn't leave the chamber alive.
doesn't
let's
look
say.
good for him.
No. And we also know he's dead.
Yes.
Yeah. When you add it all up.
Yeah, put two and together. Yeah, put two and two together and come up with 4. Yeah, fair enough.
Let's not commit to 4 right now, but certainly more than 3 and less than 5. Back at the castle, the others are gathered.
Yes, they sneak down to the dungeon in search of inspiration.
Yeah, Jonathan and Carla do, yes. And Jonathan reflects on the moment where Jodie was stung.
Yes, it's a third eureka moment that he has in this episode.
It's almost like going to cause an aneurysm, the amount of eureka's he's having in this episode.
Yeah, as you say, he remembers when Jodie was apparently stung and sat on his lap. And Carla advises, this is nice, Carla advises that he stops thinking about that as the space is cramped enough down there.
Yes. That's the second time she's made a joke of that nature.
Yeah.
He goes to look at the drawbridge mechanism and gives Carla a very firm instruction not to enter the chamber.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Bronson watches on from ramparts, I guess, or some kind of balcony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a POV shot.
Mm-hmm. Traditional.
In the drawbridge, we see Jonathan pull a lever, which causes the mechanism to move, and at the same time, Carla drops her anklet into the pit.
And he immediately forgets the advice that Jonathan gave her.
Yeah, and as she scrambles down to try and retrieve it, we see a sinister pair of legs come down the stairs.
Yes, and we know it's not Jonathan because we see him at the drawbridge mechanism, so you wonder, is this person going to cause the end of Carla?
Yeah. The drawbridge is now in full motion.
Yes.
And as this happens, we see Carla start to panic as she looks up and sees the ceiling of the chamber with the hole in it begin to lower towards her.
Yes. So she starts to climb the ladder, but she's struggling because it's not in the best of condition.
And it snaps.
And she is very fortuitously grabbed at the last second and hauled to safety.
Yes, heroically by
Bronson.
Yeah.
Yeah, who would have thought? That's a big twist.
So back up in the dungeon, Jonathan returns and we see how the trick worked.
Yeah, he returns and says nothing about the fact that she's just nearly died from him spinning him.
Tell us what's happened.
Okay, so it's obviously a false floor that's come down from the ceiling, so it's squished both Alan and previously the bishop's wife, presumably, and it's lit like a false floor underneath, and the chimney is where the chains that control it have disappeared up. And obviously in the previous times that it would burn off, but maybe it's now an automated release.
It's a counterbalance, isn't it? When the drawbridge is moved,
Yeah.
the ceiling goes up and down, and
Yeah, it's quite cute.
quite impressive. Back to the editing room. They are all gathered as Jonathan explains to them what has happened with regards to the drawbridge and ceiling, and how Herman would have known all about it and have the technical expertise to pull off the edited audio recording.
Yep, Herman gives a little bit of additional detail at this stage before Jonathan explains a bit more about, I think, what I just said about the release of the chains.
Yes, however, it turns out he did not work alone.
Look, okay, it was Herman's call, all this. I mean, like a movie, right? There has to be a single voice. But this was totally a four-way thing, right down the line. Because what that man did, it's like the guy said. Even if they'd put him away, Houdini.
Yes, you did a good job of making us and Alan believe he was above suspicion.
You got something to say to me, say it.
Well, I wouldn't want to intrude.
So his guard will be down when you went for the big one.
She's alive or dead.
But then you knew he'd never refused a professional challenge in his life.
World's greatest escape artist.
Chance to show off.
I show no mercy.
What was he going to do? Certainly not listen to me. So the other two have backed off. They're going to be needed upstairs. The skeleton's in place. You've sprung your trap, and it's worked. Guy's come all the way up here for a funeral. Sadly, no one's told him it's his own.
And then, through flashback and a Nokia 3310, we see how the plan was executed in full.
Yeah, it turns out it was Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, spoilers.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, the note that Bronson had, he hadn't received that note, he'd written that note. That's possibly one of the key revelations there. But the whole thing was sickening him and he's still not sold on it.
Yeah, that's why he was ill the next morning. It wasn't the alcohol.
No. Guilt and worry, I suppose. Herman has a few words to add, and he noticed that the guilty aren't always those that kill. And that he advises Jonathan and Carla to think on that and realise that Alan Kalnick's soul belongs in hell.
Do you also think that perhaps Carla is partially responsible?
In what way?
She stole the note that Bronson was going to give to Kalnick.
Oh, to warn him off. But he could have written it again. It's a handwritten note.
Could have, but maybe thought it was a sign.
I don't think she's responsible because of that, no.
Okay. Well, hopefully you'll agree that the two of them have been unimaginably stupid here.
Yeah,
They've
they've
been
walked
back
into
to
the bear
the lair,
pit,
literally a dungeon of murderers, and says, we've worked out what you did.
Yeah.
All four of you against us two in your murder dungeon.
Yes. Ah,
What are they thinking?
I don't know.
They're thinking they're just going to be allowed to walk out of there. I mean, they were, but why would you be?
Yeah, and why would you assume that? Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyway, back in London, in the back of a taxi, Carla's getting dropped off at home.
She is, and is clearly relieved to be back there, and is now suitably impressed by Jonathan's baroque mind and how he solved the trick just from the wasp bite incident.
So how did he achieve that?
Well, what he explains is that Jodie only pretended to be bitten as a means of distracting him from the cafetiere plunger.
Yes, because it's the same mechanism as the roof coming down. Although only someone who knew would even make that connection. I wouldn't have thought Jonathan seeing a cafetiere. Well, maybe they're that worried about his mind that they have to protect against it.
Yeah, but it's not that, is it? It's not so much his mind, but because you are, as you rightly said there, because you know how it was done,
Yeah.
you assume that it's obvious.
Yes, yeah. So it's not so much she's worried Jonathan will see it, so much as she's seen it, made that connection, and tried to distract from it.
Yeah.
But then how does he know there was a cafetiere? How does he even remember there was a cafetiere there?
Don't know.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, he's an impressive man. Anyway, there is then a bit of uneasy chemistry in the taxi before Jonathan asks to come in to use the toilet.
Yeah, at first he rebuffs Carla's invitation to join her in the flat, but eventually he comes up with an excuse to go along with it.
And as he goes to the loo, Carla is startled by the immensely creepy who.
Kenny.
What's he doing?
Oh no, this is terrible. It's so
horrible.
bad. He has good news for Carla and has broken into her house to deliver it.
Okay. It must be very good news.
Yeah, it turns out that Vernon Spools was real.
Mm-hmm.
It was his real name. He found him in the Yellow Pages. And he'll be seeing in the new year in a wheelchair.
Yes. The guy is a maniac. Not just that. Well, firstly, she should have called the police immediately.
Yes.
Okay. But he also mentions his lockpicks and references his knowledge of how to satisfy different women. There's something about, I don't know.
The whole thing was a bit weird, but
Weird, creepy.
Vernon has been warned off by Kenny to the extent that he ever picks up the phone to Carla again. And at this point, she realises that when she dialed the wrong number previously, she was holding the slip of paper upside down. And the number reads as a different number the other way around. She is so angry. And Kenny doesn't really pick up on this because he's asking if he can be part of her life.
Yeah, and there's a visual element to that, a physical element to this as well. Can you remember what he does?
Does he pull wire cutters out from his pants?
Oh, no, worse than that.
What was it?
He releases his ponytail and
Yes,
lets his
so
hair down.
he's worth it. Yes. She basically beats him up at this stage and chucks him out just as Jonathan emerges from the bathroom.
Quite right. And as he helps her tidy up, they get round to the outstanding mystery.
Yes, Carla has some ideas on this. She thinks perhaps it's an unsolvable crime.
So, still think I overcharged you? I mean, how good can a magician get? He's pulled off a murder so impossible, we'll probably never know now how it was done.
What was it Grohl said? The guilty aren't always those that kill.
Wants us to see Kalnick's death as an act of justice.
Or did he mean something else? If Kalnick wasn't there in person on that day, what are we left with? Either he planted some kind of device, which we know was never found, or what if he set someone up to do it for him? Look at her face when she was pointing at the window. It was almost... I don't know. What? Not like she was pointing at all. So much as trying to reach out to someone.
And at this, Jonathan puts in his floppy disk to see if he can find anything else that may have been hidden. And indeed, he can.
Yeah, by doing what we said earlier.
Yeah, the obvious thing.
Yeah.
Talking about what's obvious, there's 3 or 4 times in this episode that Jonathan has explained, and I think we all worked out straight away that when she was pointing at the window, it was a reflection.
Yeah.
But every time he talks about it, it's as if he's just realising just now.
Revealing it again. And talking about repeating things, Carla at this stage goes back to Jodie and starts complaining about her again. I think this is her way of flirting with Jonathan, to be honest, but it comes across a bit weird.
Yeah.
She reflects on how he put her through something horrible. Bit harsh. She can still taste the cinnamon. Mm-hmm. Quite like cinnamon, it's not really a problem.
Oh.
But what if she finds a man won't do for her anymore? What if she's been turned to lesbianism by cinnamon chapstick? I don't really understand.
She kissed a girl and she liked it. Anyway, Jonathan gets more satisfaction from solving the puzzle in front of him. We don't see what the entry says, but we do know that it has revealed Vivian's killer.
Yeah, and Jonathan obviously hears what, or doesn't hear what Carla's saying, but there's a nice little segue where she asks, what if a man won't do for me? He says, let's put it to the test, but he's talking about the puzzle. Yeah, he seems satisfied with what he sees.
Yeah, and we are at a farmhouse next.
Yeah, there's a...
Or a caravan.
I'm not sure, I think some kind of trailer park maybe. There's certainly a mobile home involved. They've come to see the one person who could make it look like a bullet passed through glass.
Yeah, so they turn up and they apparently have the address from the cast and crew list.
Mm-hmm.
They find this static caravan and Jonathan is able to pick the lock to allow them entry, but are disturbed to find the place is what?
It's a shrine to Viv.
Did that remind you of Alan Partridge?
Yeah. No, it reminded me of was there not an earlier Jonathan Creek where there was a shrine? Anyway, yes. At this, the owner of the mobile home comes back.
Well, firstly, the owner's dog pads.
Yes, the dog comes in ahead of him. And this fellow, Tom, comes in.
Yeah, Tom the Axeman.
Yes.
From the movie.
He starts arguing with himself.
He's clearly, he's clearly not mentally stable.
Yeah, he's not all in the present moment.
And he demands that they hear his side of the story.
Yeah, on the basis that they cannot prove they're not police.
Yeah. He has had a lifelong obsession with Vivian, and it felt like fate to him when he got the part next to her. And then through flashback, we see that they had some sort of relationship, but she didn't want to take it any further.
Yeah, she told him that he was the most special person to her in the whole world, but he realised that he was nothing. It was a game to her when she rebuffed his advances.
Yes, and we find out that it was indeed him who had slashed her clothes and left a knife through her prosthetic head in her hotel suite.
That was disturbing. We get a bit of a flashback where she tells Alan about this and he visits Tom.
Yes, but unfortunately for Vivian, Kalnick sees this as an opportunity to gain his revenge, and they plot to kill her together. Yes,
he doesn't straighten Tom out at all. He rather bends him further towards crime.
Yeah, the next bit's a bit ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, a little montage, a sort of buddy montage of the two of them running around in fields, skipping around and putting a gun inside an axe.
Yeah, they developed this axe gun, and we see how he shot her through the door during the scene. No way, I'm not buying this at all.
How would you even line it up properly? You're hacking through a door that you can't see through.
Yeah.
The axe would have to finish in exactly the right spot to be pointing at. Leaving
aside the logistics, the mechanics of just building an axe gun, right? But let's say you could do it. That won't be a highly calibrated precision. There's no sighting on it. You've built a shit. It's a homemade gun.
Yeah.
There's no way you can guarantee you're hitting anything with it.
That's a stupid idea.
Very stupid idea. Don't believe it for a second.
You should have built a book bomb that sat behind her on the bookshelf.
Yes, anything like that. But to kill her as you, it's like you're chopping down this door, then all of a sudden you've got to pause. Hold on a second, take aim. Nah.
Maybe he could have built a door handle gun that when they pulled the door handle, it shot her.
Oh, there's plenty of ways you could have killed her.
They're all stupid ideas. Equally stupid ideas.
However, things take an even more disturbing turn for Tom when he reveals he thinks that Herman knew what he did, but covered for him, and Jonathan has to furnish him with more devastating information.
Well, whatever Herman Grohl did, he did for one reason. Because he knew the last thing in the world Vivian Brodie would have wanted was for you to go down. Because when she said you were the most special person in the world, there was more truth to that than you could ever know. I suppose we should have got an inkling of it for all that time she took off in the 70s. How old are you now, Tom? 28? 29?
What? What do you know about what she felt about anything?
We know because she left a fairly detailed confessional account behind. Some of it's so personal it's only this second come to light. It's only now we've got the complete picture of what happened between them at that meal.
Through more flashback, what do we discover?
Well, we see her telling Alan about Tom, and then we see her telling Herm about Tom.
Yeah, I think, to summarise, correct me if I'm wrong here, years earlier, she had a child and put him up for adoption. And that child is Tom.
That's right.
Now, he's pretty messed up, but doesn't know the truth about his mother and wanted to kill her.
Yeah, so his obsession with her is completely coincidental.
Yes.
Unless you believe in the whole Oedipus sort of attraction
Let's
thing.
not get down that route.
No. Yes, so then the subsequent abortion of what Alan Kalnick believed was his child,
Yeah.
and probably was.
Maybe.
But anyway, that's because she felt that after what happened with Tom, she didn't deserve to be a mother. She couldn't handle it. It wasn't appropriate for her. So that was not a decision made because she wanted to keep her career going or for convenience. It was a moral judgment.
Yes. And back with Tom in the caravan, Jonathan quotes Herman. I'm not sure if we mentioned it earlier, but he had stated that he had to consider the most hideous crime a man can commit, which was manipulating another man to kill his own mother.
It's lucky Jonathan figured out that was the worst crime that someone could commit. Otherwise, he'd never have solved this.
Yeah, it's not the worst crime, is it?
No, it's definitely
I can
not.
think of a few more, but
Genocide?
Well, let's not anyway.
Okay.
Let's not get too dark. But again, through a flashback, we see Vivian pointing to Tom in the reflection this time.
Yeah.
As you said, the angles are a bit wrong.
Completely wrong. There's no way Herm could know who she was pointing at unless he was standing directly behind her. Anyway, at this, Tom turns into the Incredible Hulk and starts smashing things.
And then strangling Jonathan.
With the light cable that he pulled out the roof, he smashes a light bulb and uses the cord to strangle Jonathan.
But Carla saves the day. How does she do this?
Carla explains to him that if he does this, the poor dog will have no one to look after it.
Yeah,
And so he stops and they leave and he sinks into a corner.
they do. They've walked out in quite a number of murderers here, haven't they? They've walked into the lair of a number of murderers and then just walked away.
Basically.
So, we don't know what happened to any of them.
I think we assume that they agreed with Herm that justice had been done.
No, that's not how it works.
Well, they're not police. The policeman had a story that he was happy with. The official line, Alan Kalnick killed Vivian and then killed himself.
Okay. Back at the theatre. Adam is auditioning a number of female contortionists when he reveals Kenny's fate.
Yes, he's been sacked for mimicking the trick that Adam pulled on Carla at the start of the episode. He's essentially been sexually abusing a PA by trying to remove her bra.
We shouldn't laugh.
It's not funny, but it's funny for Kenny getting sacked,
Yeah.
which he deserved for more than one reason.
At this point, a furious Carla arrives and gives Jonathan both barrels for not getting back in touch with her. She obviously has felt some sort of connection.
She feels he would obviously have known that she would want to hear from him, but he has a counterpoint.
Yeah, we discovered that perhaps she is a little bit clingy.
Well, it literally seems to be the next day, and it's not even noon. And she points out, in a sort of self-aware way, that she's deeply insecure and prone to irrational outbursts, and therefore, knowing this, it's up to Jonathan if he wants to see her again.
I think he feels put on the spot and suggests tonight
And she says she'll check her diary, see if she's free.
before storming off.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. We get a little sort of wrap-up where Jonathan explains to Adam that Alan had offered him a job.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam says, it's hard to imagine how it would feel to work for a deviant with no scruples of any kind.
Yes. at the same time as he is taking Polaroids off a contortionist's pelvic region.
That's right, and Jonathan says you get used to it.
And there we have it. So, thoughts?
I thought it was a good introduction for Carla. Overall,
I
over
agree.
the piece. It was a good mystery, not the best wrap-up.
It did feel like, I don't know, there's quite a lot going on in this
Yeah.
episode. There's a lot of threads, a lot of things that we had to go over. I thought they'd done it fairly well.
Yeah, it was decent. I agree with that. What was your favourite part?
I must admit, I think that Kenny's scenes were a highlight.
He did kind of steal the show a little bit. My favourite was the line about Norway and doorway sounding very similar.
Will we chat about him?
Sure.
He was, of course, played by Bill Bailey, who was born in 1965. This is his first of two Jonathan Creeks. He's an actor, a comedian, a musician and a TV presenter. You may have seen him in Black Books, Doctor Who, Hot Fuzz, Spaced, Tygo Road. He's also had a number of his own shows.
Yeah, he shows up on panel shows quite a lot as well.
Yeah, like QI, never mind the Buzzcocks, Blackadder's Most Cunning Moments, and Blackadder, the Whole Rotten Saga.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
For folk who like Blackadder, please tune into Blackadder podcast.
This might mean something to you. He auditioned for Gimli in The Lord of the Rings. He is a big Star Trek fan and named his son Dax.
Okay, that's a character from Deep Space Nine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is Deep Space Nine Star Trek?
Yeah.
Okay. He impressively called Phil Collins a sanctimonious little tosser.
Fair.
Won't argue with it.
No.
And said of Christy Berg, he is a monobrowed, nanny-shagging toss-monger who's inflicted his sentimental mulings on a reluctant nation.
Also fair.
Yes.
We're not arguing with either of those assessments.
No. Alan Kalnick was played by Jay Benedict, who was born in 1951 and has been in The Dark Knight Rises, Double Team, Foyle's War, Casualty, The Bill, and Hemingway.
Dark Knight Rises was disappointing.
Raymond was played by Raymond Griffiths. He has been in Hoff at the Record, Dwarfs Assemble, Life's Too Short, Star Wars Episode 1, and Through the Dragon's Eye.
Through the Dragon's Eye. That's amazing. That was the BBC Look and Read series.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it was incredible. I
Was
loved
it?
that. Watched that in primary 3.
Oh, okay.
And Life's Too Short, I think, was the Warwick Davis sitcom.
Ricky Gervais. Not no, it wasn't a sitcom.
Was it not?
It was more a documentary comedy.
Was it not a sort of mockumentary type?
Well, sort of. In the same way that, The Morning of Life with Carol Pilkington.
Right.
A sort of travel log.
Okay.
Lisa Stocky played Jodie. Born in 1975, she has appeared in Fortitude, Sarah and Selma, and Long Flat Balls 2.
Not as good as the original.
No. Matt Rippey played the Bronson. He has been in The Crown, Doctors, Torchwood, The Dark Knight, and Secret Diary of a Call Girl.
The Dark Knight was really good. Much better than The Dark Knight
Okay.
Rises.
Episode review.
Okay.
Motive.
Which one?
Both.
Revenge and Revenge.
Yes.
Rowengi.
Okay. Some of the clues. The manuscript. The wasp. The left-hand drive car. The diary with hidden segments. The CV dates. And Herman's words.
Okay. Did you say the phrases in the manuscript?
Yes.
Yeah. And the drawbridge?
The drawbridge, yeah. The gotcha. So for Kalnick, what was the gotcha?
The diary entries, I guess, pointed at him. Oh, for his death or for his killing?
For his death.
Okay.
I suppose it's working out the whole draw, how the
how
trick
the
was done.
mechanism operated to know that he didn't leave, and also the manuscript side of things, knowing that he didn't actually make the call.
Yes. And Tom's killing.
It was probably the diary entries that gave the motive.
And then the confession.
Yeah.
So. Next time, we have the coonskin cap.
So we'll see folk in a couple of weeks' time.
We will.
Okay, well, cheerio.
Bye-bye.